Hey everyone, welcome to another Real Sith of Genius tutorial. This is Finity with Real Sith of Genius, here to bring you a tutorial on Galactic War Shipments. So this is going to be focused on the characters inside of the Galactic War Store, and trying to figure out which characters are the best ones for you to get if you're starting out, what are the different roles of the different characters, and so on. One of the things to keep in mind, this is going to be fairly generic in terms of the group formations that you guys will want at the beginning of your gameplay. The one thing to keep in mind though is that some characters have synergy with other characters and together they work out really well, but individually they might not be as good. So an example would be Biggs Darklighter, who you'll see here. He's not a great character to start off with, but if you're also farming Wedge from Cantina battles, he could be a very good character to get. So I'm going to give you kind of the starting characters, but keep in mind that depending on who you're farming in some of the other areas, like the arena store, cantina battles, cantina shipments, etc., that you might want to change up the strategy a little bit. But we'll kind of go through one by one, go through some of the uses, some of the benefits and negatives, and we'll have some discussion about it. So I'm going to also get the help of SWGOH.gg, which if you guys are not familiar, is SWGOH.gg. It is a site that gives you a lot of information about the characters. We'll use that as a reference here to get an idea about some of these characters and as we go through this. So we'll just kind of go through in the order of the Galactic War Store. You'll see that the first one is Cad Bane. So let's go ahead into SWGOH.gg and bring up Cad Bane. Okay, so Cad Bane has a few different abilities. So you'll see that his base ability does physical damage to target with a chance to get a second attack, 55%, and he has a chance to gain 15% turn meter. His special is Stun Glove, which gives him the chance to stun and remove turn meter from characters, more if it's a Jedi. You see he has a leader ability that gives scoundrels 20% evasion and 25% turn meter whenever they evade, and he has a unique ability that gives him crit chance and crit damage when attacking Jedi enemies. So just by looking at this, you can tell that he's pretty much going to be an anti-Jedi character. That's going to be his primary focus. What's going to be important is kind of looking at the character as a whole and trying to figure out how these characters fit in. So when you're evaluating a character, in addition to looking at his abilities, you also want to make sure you look at the character's health and the speed. Right now, and usually in the game, the faster your speed, the better the character is going to be for you, because it means that the character is going to go more often, which means that the cooldowns will then come up faster, and so you get a little bit more rotation in terms of the character. Okay, so let's look at his speed. Cad Bane has a speed of 107, which is pretty slow, and his health is 11,929, which is also going to be pretty slow. Or pretty low. Just to give you a comparison, if you guys are looking for it, when you go to the SWGOH.gg site, you'll see that there's a link for character stats. And in character stats, you can go in here and kind of compare how all of these different characters are. So if we rank by speed, you'll see that Cad Bane is pretty much near the bottom. The fastest speed is Princess Leia with 164 and Rey with 164. You'll see that the lowest speed is going to be right around 85 with Jedi Knight Guardian and IG 100, which is 87. And Cad Bane is 107. Okay, so he's pretty much on the low end of the speed. Let's also then look at health. So you'll see that the top health is going to be some of the more tankier characters, obviously. Royal Guard, Scarif Rebel Pathfinder, which is a new character. If you go down to the bottom, you'll see that Darth Maul has 9,000, Cody has 10,000, and if you go up, you'll see that Cad Bane is still right towards the bottom at 11,929. Okay, so by looking at this, you can tell that Cad Bane is going to be pretty much a weak character. He's going to be pretty fragile. He needs the damage in order to make up for his weakness, which is going to be his survivability. And he's going to be fairly slow on his attack. Now, if you look at his special ability, which is his ability to stun, The problem is that once you get the stun off, it's going to be great. It does a good bit of damage at 5,000 damage, but he's going to be coming up so slow in his turn that by the time he gets there with so many different fast characters in the game right now, like Emperor Palpatine and Rey, and now everybody using mods for their characters in order to get them more speed, Cad Bane is just not going to measure up. So in terms of looking for an attacker, and you'll see that he is listed as a dark side, a scoundrel, and a support. So with support, you want to make sure that they have abilities that really help to emphasize your group. The problem with him is that he's not really too much of a support character. He'll do the stunning, so which can help, right? But you'll see that his potency is 26%, which isn't all that high. You're still probably reaching the 15% minimum anyways on these characters, but it's still not a great potency. And the other thing to keep in mind is also his gear, and he requires 880 purples, which is a lot of purples in order to gear him up to max gear. So when evaluating Cad Bane, in terms of whether or not to get him first, I would definitely say no. He is not a worthwhile character. He's very anti-Jedi, which can be beneficial on a newer server, because usually people are going for Jedis in order to get Yoda, and Jedis are just easy to farm at the beginning. But as a whole, he's not going to give you too much worth in the late game. He does have one benefit that I do like. So if you look at, I didn't realize my screen turned off here. So if you look at my Cad Bane, I do have him, and I actually do use him pretty frequently. But my Cad Bane is not all that useful overall. And that's mainly because the only reason I use him is this leader ability, which is giving scoundrels 17.5% evasion. The reason that becomes beneficial is that in the game, there are events called the credit heist and the training droid heist, which basically allow you to get lots of credits and lots of training droids based on how high your scoundrels are. So it's a scoundrel-specific event. And if you guys get good scoundrels, then what can happen is that you'll be able to get more credits and more training droids every time those events come up. Right now, even though the meta of the game, which is the most used characters, even though that's kind of shifted in the game away from evasion-based, evasion is still a very, very useful lead ability. And this is going to be specific to scoundrels. So when you're looking at the actual scoundrel events, it's going to be pretty much perfect. Okay, so keep this in mind as you're reviewing characters, that there are some event-specific things that you may want to get. But for the overall purposes, when you're starting out, Cad Bane is not a character that you're going to want to start off with. Okay, so now let's go back to the Galactic War Shipment. So we've gone through Cad Bane. Let's look at Luminara. So Luminara is one of the top 2 characters I would say is beneficial for you in the game at the beginning. Okay, so she is considered a light side Jedi attacker. Problem is, she is an attacker, but she's not really all that much of an attacker as she is a healer. And that's pretty much what you're going to be using her ability for at the beginning. Okay, so you'll see that she has, and I don't know why the little, there we go. The little wheel thing was up there, but now we're good. So you'll see that her basic attack does about 4,000 damage. You would expect a little bit more from an attacker type, but still, this isn't a bad amount. You'll see that her Force Blast does ability block, which in some of the earlier battles and energy can be pretty useful, but you'll also see that it does up to 6,000 damage. So this is going to be highly useful when you're initially starting. The other thing is her Master Healer's Blessing. Even though she's classified as an attacker, this may be one of the best heals in the game. And so Luminara is definitely beneficial when you're initially farming. So she is one of my top 2 characters to farm. She recovers a lot of hit points. She also gives a lot of health. And obviously, when you're farming these characters, you have to level up their abilities. So the different abilities, when you click on this in the SWGOH.gg site, you'll see that it gives you the details about what happens with each one. So you start off with level 1. When you level it up, you'll see that you gain some health on each one. Then level 4, you get more max health recovery, you get more heal over time. So you'll see that you get different bonuses as you level it up. But Luminara, definitely one of the top 2 characters you want to consider at the beginning to farm. Okay. Now, I'll explain my strategy on what I would do. Some people will differ, so you want to make sure. Obviously, I hope you trust my opinion, but I also want to make sure that you guys understand there's a lot of different strategies to this game. And it's a good idea to kind of listen to other people, whether you guys are in a guild, get their ideas, because different strategies, whatever strategy you pick, it's important that you stick with that strategy, because if you start to change, you fall behind on too many characters and it becomes much, much harder to actually get back up and kind of compete in arena and those kind of things. Okay. She also has the leader ability, which gives all Jedis evasion, which, as I just mentioned with Cad Bane, evasion is still a good ability, and Jedis are a little bit more prevalent because they're going to be your primary light side component, light side characters that you're going to be farming at the beginning. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at my Luminara here. Okay. So I have her pretty much leveled up. She was my first, actually. So she was my first 7-star character. She was my first character farmed out of Galactic War. Definitely a character that you want to consider. As you get higher and higher up, the problem is her abilities kind of fall out a little bit. But she's definitely going to be useful when you guys are doing Galactic War. She's going to be useful in light side battles. And when you're first starting on an early server, if there aren't too many pay-to-play characters, she's very useful in arena battles. Now, if you have pay-to-play characters that are getting some of the higher characters, she might not be as useful because there's a lot of healing immunity that comes into place with characters like Emperor Palpatine and with Jedi Knight Anakin. But outside of those, she's going to be very, very useful in keeping your group kind of prolonged. And she does do a lot of damage. I don't know if I would classify her as a healer, but that's what she's classified in this game, so we'll kind of continue with that. Okay. Now, let's look at the next character. That's going to be the Nightsister Initiate. There's not too much I can say about Nightsister Initiate, to be honest. She is not a good character right now. She's very tanky. She's classified as an attacker, but she's very tanky in nature. You'll see that she has 25,000 hit points. She has 23,000 protection. So in total, she's roughly about 48,000 combined hit points and protection. So she can take a pretty good beating. Her base damage is around 3,000, which is not very high. She has a decent special attack with 5,600 to 6,000. So it's a pretty good special attack. She has a secondary special attack, which also can make targets immune to positive effect status. Look at her gear, though. She requires 1,010 purples. She is going to be very, very gear intensive to get at high levels. For really not much of a payout, she's a pretty slow character, so even though she has these specials, they're not going to come up terribly often because her speed is really, really low. If you want to farm a vanity character, and some people I know like to farm certain factions just because they get drawn to it. So if you're drawn to a Nightsister Initiate or a Nightsister kind of faction, feel free to farm these. Play the game in whatever way you think is going to be the most fun. If you're looking to be massively competitive and you're trying to get to the top of the arena and you're trying to get to the highest level and save your resources and do all of those kind of things, this is a character you will want to avoid at the beginning. My Nightsister Initiate is unlocked because I went through and unlocked a lot of the characters, but she is not a character that I am currently focusing on at all. So you'll see that initially I was farming some Nightsisters. I got her up to level 43. She's still 2-star. She has enough shards to go up to 3-star. She is not a focus. Okay, so you guys can do a lot of the end game things and a lot of the things inside of the game without needing her. So she would be kind of at the bottom of the list. below. So far we have Luminara at the top, we have Cad Bane kind of somewhere in the middle, and we have Nightsister Initiate at the bottom. Okay. Next one is Teebo. Now, Teebo is a bit of an interesting character. He can be useful in Galactic War. If you watch the Galactic War strategy, you'll see that he as a leader can help against counterattack squads. So if you're facing like a Fives or a Dooku, or if you have like an Imagundi lead Jedi squad, groups that tend to do a lot of counterattacks, Teebo lead can be useful because whenever a character is stealth, they can attack a counterattacking character and it doesn't provoke. So let's bring up Teebo here. In terms of your progress overall in the game, he has pretty much one focus right now, and that's going to be raiding. He is going to be your main character for getting high scores in your Rancor raid. Now, there is a new raid coming out, which is the AAT tank raid. It hasn't come out yet, so I'm going to focus on the Rancor raid because we don't have a timetable yet. But in the Rancor raid, Teebo is going to be your main leader when you're trying to get a high score. So with that, if you are in a position where you are going to be raiding tier 6 and tier 7, I wouldn't really bother too much with tier 5 and below, because you can do pretty well in terms of damage with other characters, and we'll go through the other one of the top 2 that I mentioned, which is Captain Phasma, which is one of the top 2 characters to farm out of Galactic War. You can form a pretty good team with her. If you are looking towards the end game, which is the raid, then Teebo would be one of the characters you would want to get. In terms of a list, like a priority list in Galactic War, I would put him behind Luminara and Phasma. I may put him behind Tusken Raider and IG-88 or IG-86, who you'll see here, and we'll go through. So you'll see Tusken Raider, IG-86, and Teebo. Those are kind of the above average characters, so like the next tier below Luminara and Phasma that I would recommend. And once you get into that level, you can kind of pick what you want your focus on. If your focus is going to be on trying to get high in the raids, then Teebo will probably be the first character that you'll want to get in that tier. I have mine maxed out. In terms of gear, I have some potency mods on him for when I do raids. Oh, no, I don't have him maxed out. I'm missing one thing. Right. So, near maxed out. But you'll see that he's pretty much omega'd in his abilities. I didn't omega this yet, which is his one special. But let's do a quick review on him in his abilities. Okay, so why is he good in raids? His basic attack, when you omega it, has a 100% chance, with assuming you get the hit, to remove turn meter. Okay, so this is going to be a potency effect. That's why I have potency on him. So if he is stealth, he will remove 100% turn meter. So there isn't a chance that he could remove. It's not like a 65% chance that he'll remove 100%. It's straight up, he has a 100% chance to remove 100% turn meter, and that's going to be based on his potency. You'll see that his next ability gives him stealth. So all Ewok allies gain 100% turn meter, Teebo gains stealth for 3 turns, and other Ewoks also have a chance to gain stealth. That other Ewoks is his Omega ability, which is the one that I don't have right now. So everything else is still there, the turn meter base. As a word of caution, if you have Teebo in the lead position right now in your raid group, that ability is somewhat bugged because it is overridden by his lead ability. They're working on fixing it, but you can still solo a phase 1 with Teebo even with that bug. You just have to kind of work on the strategy, and I have a video for phase 1 Rancor on our YouTube channel as well. His next ability is a special damage that removes any positive status effects. Removes taunts in particular, which is useful in phase 1 of the Rancor. And if you put some Omegas in it, you'll see that you can actually get more turn meter reduction. And I do have that. It does become beneficial in the raid. Not as useful as his basic ability and his lead ability Omega, but it's definitely useful. And Then you have his lead ability, which gives stealth to all allies. It gives a 55% chance for them to gain stealth. And during that time, they also have a chance to gain turn meter. So his lead ability ends up being very, very useful. Now, if you look at his gear, though, he requires 1,030 purples. That is a pretty hefty amount. So it's important that you kind of keep that in mind, that he is going to be a pretty gear-intensive character. You'll see that he also has some dark side and light side nodes that you can farm him for. And this means that you can kind of work on him maybe beforehand in some of the energy battles and get a head start on him before you actually farm him in the Galactic War Shipments and speed him up. So you have a few options with him. But again, he is not going to be one of the first two characters that I would recommend. So keep him in the back of your mind once you finish the other two. Okay. Going back to this. We have Teebo. Now we have Biggs Darklighter. Biggs Darklighter is a character that I mentioned to you guys kind of at the beginning in passing, which is that he is a rebel character. He does have a call to assist ability. Let me go ahead and let's bring him up so we can kind of discuss him here. Okay, so he has a basic attack that does 3,800 to 4,200 damage, which is reasonable, not high end, but not low either. He has a call to assist ability, and all attacks have 75% more chance to crit, which is great. You'll see that there is a line about Wedge Antilles here. Even though he's not in Galactic War, I'm going to show you why he's kind of necessary to make Biggs pretty decent versus just kind of an average character. He also has his unique, where he gains 100% turn meter and evasion up anytime he's damaged by an Empire character or is critically hit. Okay, so again, you'll see that he, kind of like Teebo, has a few other options where you can farm him from. So he has Cantina Battle, he also has Dark Side Battles, and he has Galactic War tokens. You'll also see he has almost 15,000 health. He has almost 14,000 protection. Combined, he's at about 28,000. So he's not the most tanky of characters, but he's not also as fragile as Cad Bane. So he has a little bit of survivability. He's a rebel, and there are rebel-specific events like the Emperor Palpatine, where he can come into play. But remember to look at his speed. So you see how his speed is 108. 108 is fairly slow. So as a character on his own, he's not going to be terribly great. But now let's take a look at Wedge. Okay. Now Wedge, again, he's not available in Galactic War. Okay. But he is a character that actually really helps with the big synergy. Not going to go into too much detail with him, but the main thing I want you guys to look at is this red leader unique. So you'll see that Wedge has a 12% offense and plus 9 speed for each ally with full health and plus 15 speed for each ally without full health. Okay, but if Biggs Darklighter is present, he also gains these bonuses. So that means that with Wedge, Biggs also gets this unique ability, and with plus 9 speed for each ally with full health, when you're starting off a match, instead of his speed being 109 or 108, you're adding 45 speed because each ally, or 36 speed because of each other ally that has the speed. So now Biggs Darklighter is a lot faster. Okay, so you've gone from having somebody in the speed of almost 110 to having somebody with almost a 150 speed. Now you've kind of changed the entire dynamic of Biggs Darklighter. Because if we go back and look at Biggs Darklighter's abilities, okay, if you have him teamed up with Wedge, look at his Comrades in Arm ability. It's a 2-turn cooldown. You call an ally to assist. If Wedge is present, Wedge also assists. So now you're getting 2 other attackers with this. It's a 2-turn cooldown. You're increasing his speed to almost 150. Biggs is now a monster. Okay, but without Wedge, Biggs is just kind of average. So Whether or not you want to get bigs is going to depend largely on whether or not you plan on farming Wedge Antilles. At the beginning, Wedge isn't going to be pretty accessible because Wedge is, I can show you guys because I'm currently working on it myself. Wedge is available at 6F. And so getting up to the 6th stage is going to take a little while. You don't want to kind of make a plan based on something so far away. So he might be in that 2nd tier with Teebo and 86 and Tusken Raider. I think I would put Biggs in there only if you plan on farming Wedge. If you don't plan on farming Wedge, Biggs falls below that. He's pretty much going to be at the level of Cad Bane, so kind of in that 3rd tier now. Okay, so looking at the characters again that we've gone through. Okay, we have Cad Bane, who I kind of put on the 3rd tier, so I'll make 4 tiers, which is the 1st tier is going to be the characters you want to get first. The 2nd tier is going to be characters that you'll want to get kind of next and they have a good purpose. 3rd one is they have minimal purpose and you don't want to waste too many resources on them early. And the 4th one is ones that you want to kind of ignore. So Cad Bane is definitely going to be a 3rd tier. Luminara is definitely going to be a 1st tier because you'll want to get her early. Nightsister Initiate will be a 4th tier because she just doesn't serve much of a purpose in the game right now. Teebo would be a 2nd tier. And his condition on 2nd tier would be depending on how much you want to focus on the raid. Biggs Darklighter would be a 2nd tier if you are farming Wedge, or 3rd tier if you are not farming Wedge. Okay. Now we're looking at Dathcha. Dathcha is kind of an interesting character. Prior to the new raid being announced, Dathcha would have probably been a tier 4 character. One that you're not going to really want to farm. Even right now, because the full details of the new raid are not known, Dathcha is probably still going to be sitting on tier 4 in terms of characters you want to farm. But there are certain Jawas like Dathcha that are very much anti-droids. And the new raid, the AAT raid, is going to be pretty much focused on droids. So let me bring up Dathcha here for you guys. And we'll kind of look at his abilities and then we can evaluate. Okay, so Dathcha has a 4,000 damage basic attack, which is pretty much average. And Dathcha has a chance to gain stealth. May or may not be useful, depends on the situation, not something that you really want to hang your hat on. Then Dathcha has an ability that inflicts 50% chance for ability block for 1 turn, and a 50% chance to stun droids for 1 turn. There are on a lot of older servers, even though it's kind of shifting away from it, there are still a good number of droid squads. And so Dathcha may become useful in that. Problem is that the speed still doesn't match up with how fast a droid squad goes. So by the time Dathcha goes, it may not be terribly useful. But in a raid, Dathcha serves a much bigger purpose. So don't focus on Dathcha as anti-droid in PvP necessarily. Think about Dathcha as an anti-droids in a raid. And that's where Dathcha may move up from tier 4 to tier 3. With the chance to AoE stun droids, it becomes fairly useful. It's a 4-turn cooldown, so it can't be used too often. You have a lead ability where whenever an ally damages a droid, they have an 80% chance to inflict defense down for 3 turns, and a 25% chance to remove turn meter. So that's good against a whole lot of droids. Again, against a droid PvP squad, it may be a little bit too slow. Depends on your group setup. If you use a Jawa engineer, you may be able to overcome that. So you'll want to kind of see your group synergy. But again, more focus on towards the raid than it is towards other aspects of the game. And then the Dathcha has a lot of specific droid ability gains. 4.5% crit chance for each living Jawa ally, and there are 5 in the game now. And in addition, he has plus 15% critical damage. So he can be doing a good amount of damage in a full Jawa squad. Full Jawa is somewhat difficult to get. They are kind of spread out, so you could farm all of them at once. But overall, their usefulness is kind of average, so may not be the best thing to focus on first. If you look at Dathcha in terms of gear, though, really easy to gear. 470 purples, not that much. Only 2 raid pieces, again, not that much. So Dathcha is going to be fairly easy to gear up. The problem is the overall use of this character. Because of that, you probably want to put Dathcha in tier 4 for now. If Dathcha is proven to be good in the raid, maybe tier 3. I would still focus on the other characters first. Okay. So we've gone through Dathcha, who we would consider a tier 4 character. Next is Poggle. Now, Poggle is a character I feel bad for. Poggle used to be the droid meta leader. So you used to be able to put Poggle on a team with droids, give all the droids and Geonosian allies 30% offense, and he would be just kind of the best droid leader. Problem became, then they introduced Jawa Engineer, and Jawa Engineer just made the whole droid squad go even before other teams, despite how fast they were, because Jawa Engineer gives turn meter bonus to droids. Because of that, Poggle fell out of favor, because outside of lead, his abilities are not that good. His base ability has a chance to inflict ability block, but it's about 3,000 damage, so it's kind of on the low end. He gives offense up to all allies, which is definitely useful. There aren't too many offense up characters that just kind of give it. There's usually some kind of trade-off, like for example, Jedi Knight Anakin can give it, but he has to do an AoE and has a chance to expose. Qui-Gon Jinn can do it, but he needs to dispel something. Emperor Palpatine can do it, but he kind of steals life from characters. So Poggle is nice in that he has offense up for 3 turns. To all characters. Droid allies also gain speed up, and Poggle has a chance to gain turn meter. He also gains evasion for each living droid ally, and can gain turn meter whenever he evades an attack. He's a fast character with 144 speed. His health is almost 17,000. His protection is 14,000. So combined, he's pretty much at 31,000 combined damage needed to take him out. So he has pretty good survivability. Problem is he's not a lot of damage. He used to be good. Prior to the release of Jawa Engineer, when droid squads were still pretty viable with him as leader, he might have been a tier 2. Unfortunately now, he's kind of fallen way below, and I would put him as a tier 4. He's not a character that you really want to focus on early. Not too much benefit to what he's providing you in terms of a leader. So hold off on Poggle. He may make a return at some point in the future. If you look at his alliances, his alignments, he's a Geonosian, he's a dark side, he's a support character. The other one, though, is the Separatist. And Separatist is a new tag that was put in about, I want to say about 4 weeks ago from the date of this video. And there aren't official plans on making a Separatist event, but they're considering it, and they made this in kind of preparation for it. So at some point down the line, there's probably going to be a Separatist event. Poggle may be useful for that, but in terms of your general gameplay and when you're first starting, avoid Poggle. He's not going to provide too much benefit. He is not a hard gear, though. 320 purples. It's pretty easy to gear him up. And so if you ever get him, he would be pretty easy to get kind of up there, but not a character you want to focus on early. Okay, so Poggle, I would put him as tier 4. Next, you have IG-86. IG-86 is a massive damage dealer. His one downfall is that he's slow. But with a team with Jawa Engineer, for example, he can be very fast with the turn meter gain and can deal a lot of damage. So let's look at his abilities here. So IG-86 on his base attack can do up to 6,000 damage. And if you kind of compare to the ones that we were looking at earlier, 6,000 damage was almost as much as they were doing on a special. So IG-86 is a massive damage dealer, and he has an additional 50% chance of crit. Okay, so he's not only dealing a lot of damage with the 50% chance to crit, he's adding on top of that 6,000 damage if you don't put any mods on him, an additional 50% damage. So you're looking at almost 9,000 damage when you have him fully maxed up. Then you have his special, which is a call to assist ability. Okay, so again, call to assist means that you have two people attacking. He already gains a bonus to his attack. He's almost up to 7,000 damage with his special. And if you put him in a droid squad and the assisting ally is a droid, both attackers have an additional 75% crit damage. So now, if he crits, you're getting even more damage on top of that, and is more damage on top of the 7,000 almost special physical damage that he's doing with his special attack. And then he also has his droid tactics, which is his unique ability that gives him crit chance for each living droid ally. And in addition, he has his crit damage. Okay, so you can see how he will be a massive damage dealer. You put him in a droid squad with HK-47 and IG-88, who are both farmed from arena shipments. Put him with another droid, maybe something like B2 from Cantina, or an IG-100. You may even want to put him with just a tank of some kind to help with it. It may not be a droid. With Jawa Engineer giving turn meter. So you'll see that as a fairly common squad, which would be an HK-47 lead with IG-88, IG-86, Jawa Engineer, and then some kind of tank in that fifth spot, like a Chief Nebit, a Royal Guard, a Stormtrooper Han. You form a pretty deadly squad. The one problem is, of the characters that I mentioned, HK-47 and IG-88 are both farmed through arena shipments. And unless you're getting high in arena, it's going to take a while for you to finish off a character. And during that time, you might have been able to farm another character that is better solo versus HK-47 and IG-88 that really do need a droid squad in order to meet their full potential. So that's pretty much the only reason why IG-86 is a tier 2 character. He may be the best non-specific tier 2 character that I will mention. So if you remember, Teebo was a tier 2, but he's if you're focusing on raids. Biggs Darklighter can be a tier 2, but only if you're farming Wedge. In terms of just the next best character, IG-86 is probably the next best one after Luminara and Phasma. He's 880 purples, so he does require a good number of purples. Not in the 1,000 though, which is nice, so he will require some investment. He does get up to tier 11 in terms of his gear, so if you look over here, he actually gets tier 11. There's only a few characters that do that, so that means he gets a lot of extra bonuses compared to some other characters. So IG-86, definitely a tier 2 character. If you're just looking for a character that will fit into any squad, even though his best potential is with the droid squad, IG-86 is pretty much a good standalone character too. Okay, so the next one up is Tusken Raider. Now, Tusken Raider is kind of an overgrown, slower version of Geonosian Soldier. So Geonosian Soldier is kind of a big damage dealer. He's found early in Cantina, so he's a good character to kind of farm there, but we'll do that in a different video. But the thing to know is that Tusken Raider is like Geonosian Soldier in that he does a good bit of damage, but he is a lot tankier. So his trade-off is he trades off a little bit on damage from what Geonosian Soldier does and does it with a lot more hit points. Okay, so let's look at Tusken Raider. His base ability does about 3,500 damage. Not all that great. It's a little bit, it's average, a little above average. He has a chance to remove 50% turn meter though. That becomes very useful in the raids also. So in phase 1, 2, and 3, Tusken Raider can be a pretty viable character for you. So he does have the additional benefit of being a good raid character. His base damage isn't great, but it's still pretty decent. He has his special attack, which is a call to assist, that becomes a 2-turn ability on Omega. So without the Omega, you'll see that you get the cooldown -1 on the last ability. So without his Omega, without using 5 Omega mats on him, to level up his ability, it's going to be a 3-turn cooldown. So you definitely want to make sure that you look at how you're going to be spending your Omegas too. Okay. So the next thing is his unique, which is that he gains 15% offense for each living Tusken ally. There's only Ururu and Tusken Shaman right now in terms of Tusken allies, so you're not going to look too much at that ability. It's somewhat wasted, to be honest. It's just him, so it's not going to be terribly beneficial. He does gain that offense boost though, which means that his base ability does do 15% more damage and so on and so forth. But just to kind of keep that in mind, you'll see that he requires 700 purples. He can be farmed from a bunch of different nodes also. So he has Cantina battles, he has Dark Side. So you can farm him in a few different places. He's a good tanky character, similar to Geonosian Soldier. And let me just bring up Geonosian Soldier because I'm mentioning him just to kind of compare. You'll see that his base damage is similar. The difference is Tusken Raider removes turn meter. Geonosian Soldier gives himself offense up. So Geonosian Soldier is kind of a damage dealing machine. And that his special ability does the call to assist also, but it's more damage. That Geonosian Soldier is pretty much 7,000 versus Tusken Raider, which is just about 5,000. So Geonosian Soldier does do more damage, so I'm not going to equate the damage as equal. But in terms of just the ability and the function, you could substitute Tusken Raider in most places that you would want Geonosian Soldier and come out with a pretty similar result. He's useful in Galactic War because he's pretty tanky, so he can take a beating. And if you saw the strategies video that I was mentioning to you guys, on the hard nodes, I like putting in Geonosian Soldier because he does do a lot more damage. But on some of the easier ones, I put in Tusken Raider because he can take a beating better than Geonosian Soldier, and I don't want Geonosian Soldier to die. So with his Galactic War abilities, with his abilities in the raid, and just his overall function, I would put him as a tier 2 character. He would be behind 86 in terms of a standalone character. So just kind of keep that in mind when you guys are deciding who to farm. And now we're down to the last row here. Resistance Pilot. Resistance Pilot is an interesting character. She appears to have a good kit when you look at her on paper. She doesn't really work out when you actually play her. She used to be a better character, but for whatever reason, it just doesn't play out as well. So she is a resistance character, as you would imagine. She's a light side attacker. Her base ability has a chance for her to gain 35% turn meter. Her special, and the damage is pretty high at about 41 to 40, so about 4,500 damage. Speed is 120, so it's a little bit average, not terribly fast, so you may not be getting this as much as you would want. With the physical damage to target enemy with a 65% chance to expose them, which is a nice ability for 2 turns, and a 65% chance to gain foresight, which is a good ability. She's very focused on keeping herself alive. There's a good amount of damage here, so almost 6,500 at the top end. And she gains turn meter whenever she evades or whenever she scores a critical hit. So she can kind of speed up herself even though her speed is slow. In actual play though, she doesn't really work out all that well. So it's just something to kind of keep in mind that she does look good on paper. She reaches tier 11 gear, which is really nice. But if you look at it, she requires over 1,000 purples and 5 raid items. So she is very, very gear intensive. And this is for a character that really doesn't provide all that much benefit. Just to kind of compare a little bit to maybe what a lot of people consider the gold standard in damage, let's compare her to Rey. Where now Rey is doing 5,000 on a basic, can do nearly 10,000 on one special, has about 8,000 on another special, but that actually has another chance to deal damage if she has a positive status effect. Her speed is 164, and she can gain foresight with her leverage special. So Rey is kind of overlapping in that sense, and Rey is just going to be a better character overall. So Resistance Pilot kind of falls behind in terms of being a reliable kind of DPSer. Okay, so Resistance Pilot I would kind of put towards the tier 3 character. She has a lot of abilities. She can potentially be useful. She's very gear intensive, which is a definite downside when you're first starting to play. And so she wouldn't be tier 4 because she has some use. She can be, she's definitely going to be, if we go back to kind of looking at the characters again, she's going to be better than Nightsister Initiate. She's going to be better than Dathcha when you guys are starting, because she does deal a lot of damage. Her abilities are just a little skewed. The next character to look at is Phasma. And I've mentioned Captain Phasma a few times here. Captain Phasma is the other tier 1 character in Galactic War. Okay, so let's look at why I would say that she is. So looking at her to begin, she is listed as a support character. And so if you're a support character, you really want to make sure you have good support abilities, which we'll go through. She's a dark side character and a first order character. First order character, not that important right now. There's not too much synergy with first order. Dark side is important though. One of the things dark side lacks when you guys are going to be doing your dark side campaigns is healers. Okay, so without too many healers, there's going to be Talia and there's going to be old Dathcha as your primary healers on the dark side. With that, you're going to have to focus a lot more on stunning and on pure damage. And so you want a support character that really helps to increase the amount of damage you deal before the opponents get a chance to attack you. Okay? Phasma helps with that in several aspects. So, let's look at her base ability. She has a chance to deal physical damage and inflict defense down on a critical hit. Defense down is definitely going to increase the amount of damage that the target takes. If it's not a critical hit, Phasma gains advantage, and advantage means that her next attack, she will automatically crit. It's 100% to crit whenever you have advantage up. Okay, so if she doesn't crit the first try, she'll get advantage, and on the next try, if you use this ability, she'll crit and then give defense down. Big advantage. She's also, like I mentioned, kind of tanky in nature, so you'll see that she's 20,000 health, and if you look at her protection, she's also 20,000 protection. So you're looking at almost 40,000 in terms of health and protection just on gear alone. Very, very useful. Her next ability gives all allies 50% turn meter and advantage for 2 turns. Now, this means that she will fit into basically any kind of group setting that you want. She can fit into your dark side team. She can fit into your cantina battles. She can fit into your arena squads, especially early on, because this turn meter gain can entirely change the outcome of a match. Because if you get one of your characters, like a Rey, to go before the opposing character's tank, before it taunts, you now can inflict a lot of damage before the other team has a turn. At lower levels, Phasma plays a big role. And even in later game, Phasma is going to be useful in raids. Phasma is useful in GW. Phasma can be useful in arenas with the right squad, although falling a little bit out of favor, but she can still be pretty useful. So definitely a great support ability. Next is going to be the Fusillade. And with the Fusillade, she deals physical damage. Not very high damage, but that's not the key component. The key component is speed down. So now, instead of having to worry about how much damage, right, if you keep your team's speed up with the turn meter gain and the speed of the other characters, and a slowdown on the speed down on the opponents, your team is going to go a lot more frequently. And that means that your team will have an advantage. And I didn't mean to use that specific word, not that advantage, but your team will have the upper hand when facing opponents if you can land the speed down. And the speed down has a 90% chance of happening. And then it goes against the potency. And the potency is 36, which is pretty decent. Okay, so now you have a character that can inflict defense down. You have a character that can give your character's turn meter and advantage, which means that your entire team will get at least 1 crit. So you can save it for the specials that they have in order to gain most damage. You have speed down being inflicted. But this right here, her leader ability, is a leader ability that can get you through a lot of different aspects of this game. Whenever an ally attacks, they have a 20% chance to call a random ally to assist, dealing 15% less damage. But even 15% less damage isn't that big a deal because you're still dealing 3,000, 4,000 damage sometimes depending on who you have as an ally. This chance is doubled if the attacking ally is first order, and if that ally had advantage, they regain it for 2 turns. So if you use Victory March, give everybody advantage, and then somebody comes to attack, they'll use their advantage, but they'll gain it back as their lead ability. This ability with the chance of gaining first order, the problem is there aren't too many good first order characters right now. And so you may not be able to take full advantage of this, the first order ability. But even then, this 20% chance of calling a random ally makes a big difference when you guys are going to be doing fights. So combined, this is why Phasma is a tier 1 character. She can really hold her own, and she does a lot of great support abilities to keep your team in good position. Other thing to note, 700 purples, 1 raid gear. She's pretty easy to gear up for such a great character. Okay, so the last character, and then I'll kind of give you my order on how I would kind of farm these things. Magmatrooper. Magmatrooper is not a great character. Magmatrooper has a history, which I'm not going to go too much into in this game, that kind of made a lot of players upset. So there's always kind of this natural hatred towards Magmatrooper to begin with. But the other thing is that Magmatrooper as a whole isn't a terribly great character. So let's look at his abilities here. So Magmatrooper has can deal physical damage with a 65% chance to attack another random target. So it's almost like a mini AoE basic. You attack 2 characters with 1 attack. It's nice to have, but if you look at the damage here, the damage is less than 3,000, and the secondary attack deals 35% less damage. So now you're looking at, instead of 3,000, you're looking at maybe like 2,300 damage. Not really that impressive. You have the detonators, the thermal imploder, I mean, which deals physical damage to all enemies, removes 30% turn meter with a 40% chance to remove another 30% turn meter, and this attack ignores armor. Now, ignoring armor is a nice thing. The problem is this removing of the turn meter. I'll compare it to another character, which is the Clone Sergeant, just to kind of give you guys an idea. But this isn't all that impressive by itself. It's a nice ability, not all that great. And then you have the Hazard Training. And the Hazard Training is the unique ability, and Magmatrooper gains 30% tenacity and gains 60% turn meter whenever he resists or suffers from a negative status effect. Could be nice when you have a lot of characters like Emperor Palpatine, who puts shock and stuns and stuff on characters. Magmatrooper may be able to get a little bit of bonus from that. But 3 raid gears, 900 purples, not really worth the effort. Okay, now let's compare with Clone Sergeant really quick, the special ability, just to kind of give you guys an idea. Clone Sergeant deals physical damage to all enemies and removes 50% turn meter just whole. Magmatrooper was 30% with a chance of another 30%. Clone Trooper does 50% base and has a 3 turn cooldown, versus Magmatrooper that's 4. Okay, so overall, Magmatrooper is pretty underwhelming. There may be a benefit to the new raid with Magmatrooper, because there are a few phases through the data mines that appear to have multiple different characters that may have like 3 other mini droids with the boss droids, or 6 mini droids with the boss droid. And in that case, maybe Magmatrooper will be helpful with kind of the 2, even though it's low damage, the 2 target attack basic and the AoE turn meter removal. But overall, right now, Magmatrooper doesn't have what it takes, so Magmatrooper will probably be a tier 4. Okay, so let's just kind of review this again. Cad Bane, I would put as a tier 3. mainly because of the Scoundrel event. He's a good Scoundrel event leader for the credit heist and the training meter droids, or the training droid events. So if you are looking to kind of get those done and try to get higher tiers, Cad Bane, even at a low level with his evasion ability, can be a good leader. That's pretty much his only upside right now, so I would put him as a tier 3. Luminara, healing is very helpful at the beginning when you're first playing, especially in the light side battles. In Arena also, it can make a difference. Her ability block and damage is all good also. So Luminara would be a tier 1. Nightsister Initiate, tanky character, not all that useful overall in the game. The abilities are duplicated by other characters, and she doesn't really provide any additional benefit. She would be a tier 4 character. Teebo is tier 2 only if you're focusing on raids. Otherwise, Teebo might be a tier 3 character. He's useful in Galactic War against counter-attacking teams. So you might want to kind of keep him in the back of your mind, but not. He would be tier 2 at best if you're focusing on the raid. Biggs would be tier 2 at best if you're farming Wedge. Without Wedge, he's kind of a tier 3 character. Kind of average call to assist ability, which is nice. Average kind of damage, but he's over the top with Wedge and then becomes tier 2. Dathcha, currently a tier 4 character, may become tier 3 depending on how the new AAT raid actually works out, but as of now, Dathcha would be a tier 4. Poggle, unfortunately, is a tier 4, although a previous time he might have been a tier 2. Not all that useful, medium damage, may become useful with the creation of a Separatist event down the line. As of now, tier 4. IG-86 would be probably the top tier 2 character because he's a good standalone character. If you're doing certain focuses, then you may want to move away from IG-86. He's best with a full droid squad, but it takes a little while to get a full droid squad because HK-47 and IG-88 are both in the same source. And Jawa Engineer is through guild shipments, and that can take a little while. But as a standalone character, lots and lots of damage, very, very useful. He would be my top tier 2 character. Tusken Raider would be my number 2 kind of tier 2 character. Pretty good overall. Less damage than Geonosian Soldier, but a little bit more tanky. So he has his kind of his trade-off with that ability. He's useful in the raid because of his turn meter removal. And he's good in Galactic War, so he would be a tier 2 character, but probably behind IG-86 as a standalone. Resistance Trooper, good on paper, not as good in action. Probably a tier 3 character, not one that you want to get immediately, requires a lot of gear in order to get up. So wouldn't really focus on her too much. Captain Phasma, definitely tier 1. Lots of support abilities, helps just overall, especially the dark side campaign where you really need to make sure you focus on damage. So Phasma with Luminara in tier 1, Magmatrooper tier 4, too much gear required, not all that beneficial overall in terms of ability. So now that we've reviewed the characters, what would be the order that I would kind of recommend getting these characters kind of farmed? So in general, the best idea is to always finish characters and get them to 7-star and then move on to other characters. In general, I do that also. I don't like to have too many characters being incomplete, meaning that they're not kind of maxed out. There are a couple of exceptions, and this would be one of my exceptions. When you guys are leveling, you'll see that you'll really want to make sure you have a squad for light side and a squad for dark side, in order to make sure that you unlock the hard nodes so you can actually start to farm some of the shards for characters. As a result of that, it does become important that you start making sure you have a strong squad in order to get that done. Now, Galactic War opens a little bit later in your gameplay. You'll start out with just kind of the energy nodes, and you'll be working on it with whatever you can. But the main thing to realize is that when you get to Galactic War, you'll really want to make sure that you start getting it kind of down every single time. And it's hard. And with the limited amount of Galactic War tokens that you'll get as you initially start, because you don't complete. So you'll see that I have 3,900 right now. Just to give you guys an idea about how it works, on this second node here, let me bring this up. So on this second node here, you will get 100 tokens. On the fourth box, you'll get another 100. On the sixth, you'll get 200. On the eighth, you'll get 200. On the 10th, you'll get 200. And on the 12th, you'll get 400. And if you look at the Galactic War Shipments, it requires 400 in order to get 5 shards. So depending how far you go will determine to how many shards you can unlock. In total, you'll get 1,200 at the end of a full clear, which means that you can get 15 shards per day, potentially. Now, you're going to have limited Galactic War tokens at the beginning because your collection is probably not going to be all that large. So there is a component of trying to enlarge your collection also so you can complete these things. As a result of that, my suggestion would be get Luminara unlocked to 4-star first. Then get Phasma unlocked to 4 stars. And then finish off Luminara. The reason I say to go from Luminara to Phasma is that having Phasma on your team, even with those abilities at a lower level, provides a great benefit as you go through the Dark Side campaign. Without healers on the Dark Side campaign, it becomes somewhat difficult as you get into the higher stages. You'll require a lot of stuns. You do need to use a lot of damage-based characters. And so Phasma becomes really, really helpful on the Dark Side campaign. In addition, the turn meter gain and the slow can help in Arena, which help to boost those also. Now, if you want to focus more on Arena, then I would say maybe take Phasma before Luminara up to 7-star. But still get both of those characters, Luminara and Phasma, 4-star and unlocked first, so that you have them available, and then pick whichever character you want. Luminara will probably provide you more benefit on Cantina battles because of the healing ability having such a great influence on the PvE or the player versus environment aspects, which is the Cantina battles and the energy battles and so on. Phasma would be a better leader and a better character for Arena as you initially start. So Phasma can also be a good character to focus on initially. That's why I have them kind of both at tier 1. But those two should be your first 2 characters to 7-star from Galactic War. Okay, they should also be your first 2 unlocked, and I would unlock them both to 4-star first. Okay, so just to kind of go over it again, Luminara 4-star unlock first, then Phasma 4-star unlock, level them up, gear them up, whatever you want during that time while you're still working on their shards. But after you get them to 4-star and unlocked, then you can pick whichever one you want to focus on. Luminara will help you more with light side campaigns and Cantina battles. Phasma will help you a little bit more with the arena battles. Luminara may help you a little bit more on Galactic War, but both of them will help you pretty well in Galactic War. But Luminara with a slight edge on that. So that's kind of my review on the Galactic War shipments. Again, sometimes these can be specific based on what you plan on farming. So if you are farming a droid squad, maybe IG-86 is the way to go for you. It's really important that whatever you do, you come up with a plan. This was just kind of a generic overview of the Galactic War shipments, but if you have specific questions regarding your squad, please post in the comments of the YouTube video, and we'll kind of give you our opinions on your situation and maybe what would be the best for you to farm. But in general, if you're coming away from anything from this, is Luminara and Phasma, 2 of the best characters in the game, especially when you're starting, and they do serve a purpose as you go into the late game also. Okay, with that, this is Finity from Real Sith the Genius, signing out.